That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to a special edition of Higher Ed Pulse. I'm your host, Mallory Wilsey, and we're live at the 2024 AMA Symposium for the Marketing of Higher Education, bringing you conversations directly from the floor with thought leaders, innovators, and industry changemakers. Let's dive in and check the pulse of what's happening right here at the symposium. Friends, we are here live at AMA. The hype is real, the Vegas vibes are vibing, and I am sitting down with the two AMA co-chairs, Teresa Valerio-Parrot, principal of TVP Communications, and Stephen Jendraszak from Emory, AVP for Marketing. Y'all, it's finally here, a whole year's worth of planning. How are you feeling? And Teresa, tell us about what you did last night.
I am so excited to kick off this conference, and this uptown girl on Friday night went to go see Sting and Billy Joel, and can I just tell you, it was amazing. I got to sing along with two of my favorites for almost 4 hours. It was exactly what I needed to get in the mindset for an amazing 4 days.
And I'm just thrilled for the conference to get started. This is going to be the largest event that AMA has ever had. We are ticking close to 1,800 attendees. I think we'll hit that number by tomorrow morning, perhaps, if not still largest event in AMA's history. And already feeling the energy as folks are arriving and getting registered and getting settled in for the day. I think people really need this conference. We've had a number of hard years in higher ed, and this is our chance to recharge for what's going to be another year ahead.
And I just want to backstop what Stephen just said. 35 years of AMA's symposium, and this is the largest event, not just for the symposium, but for any event that AMA has hosted across all of its different types of forums, events, annual programs for national AMA as well as for the symposium. So higher ed is leading its programming across all of AMA, and that I think is something that we should celebrate.
That is incredible. I mean, what a milestone. Congratulations to AMA, to the two of you, to the whole team of volunteers that have helped make this possible. I mean, just absolutely amazing. So listeners, we're recording this on Sunday afternoon. Some pieces of AMA have already kicked off. We have a number of workshops that have been happening today and a senior leadership experience. We're just a couple hours away from the opening reception, but I know that this episode is going to drop tomorrow on Monday. And therefore, I am really interested to hear what the two of you are going to say in your opening remarks, since you will have given them by the time listeners are tuning into this episode. If someone wasn't able to make it to Vegas, they're not one of those lucky 1,800, what is it? How do you set the tone for the biggest and the best AMA that there ever was?
So one of the things that has stood out to me as we reviewed content for this year is I attended my first AMA in 2009. I've been to 13 symposiums since then. And at the time, we spent a lot of our energy talking about how marketing could get a seat at the leadership table. And what we're talking about now is what to do with the influence we have now that we are at the table. And it's not about us is ultimately the message I saw through a lot of the content that was proposed for the presentation breakouts, through a lot of the content that we chose for the fireside chats. And so that's the theme I'm asking folks to keep an eye out for, is that it's not about us, it's about our students, it's about our communities, it's about the people whose lives are better because of the research of our faculty. And to imagine what we could accomplish if we cared more about doing what was best for our institutions and our industry and not at all about who got the credit. Because we don't have anything we have to prove anymore, but we do have a lot of work to do.
And this is where I get to admit that I'm old. So my first AMA was in 2004. I'm hitting 20 years coming to these. And what I think is critically important is the community that we form. And what I want everybody to think about is I'm at 20 years of coming and talking about higher education being at a crossroads. And one of the things that we talk about is the need for us to be talking about our worth and what it is that we do as an industry. And I think this is the time for all of us to look around and say, we are doing this important work. We have been doing this important work. And how do we think about and talk about the impact and understand what we all do and see that resolve in each other to do it together and to have that ability to come together as a community, not as competitors, not as individuals who do this work independently, but instead as that impact. Because what I love about the symposium and about working together is that for 3 or 4 days a year we come together. How do we make that a year? How do we really think about how we can be a community for each other, how we're doing that in our own ways? And Mallory, you lead some of that community. You do such a tremendous job. How can we think about that in our own work life, our own spaces in new and different ways, so that we aren't seeing ourselves as a crossroads, but instead as a solid community throughout the year in new and different ways?
It's always the challenge of an event like this because the energy is so high when you're here and the lead up and the anticipation, and then it happens and there's so many sessions you can't get to because the program is incredible. And how do you carry that forward with you all year? So I love that you mentioned that because I think that is so critical to building the community here at AMA. Now, I'm going to back up for a second though, because I just mentioned, I think this year in particular, as I've personally have been scanning through this program, I am like, holy moly, they nailed it. There are so many quality sessions on that program this year. How am I going to choose what to go to? It's going to be impossible to get to everything. So I don't know. Can you pick some favorites? I mean, are you allowed?
I don't know that I can pick favorites, but I certainly had the same experience. I downloaded the app for the conference and started planning my itinerary, and there were so many sessions I had seen during our planning process that I was excited to go to, and I was disappointed to realize that the laws of physics will not allow me to attend all of them. But I think one I am particularly excited about is this is only the second year of our fireside chat format, where we kind of have two people who we know will have a fascinating conversation, and the audience gets to be a fly on the wall for that conversation and then ask questions themselves. I'm really excited to see where that can go in its second year. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
And I think there's something amazing and unique about AMA where we have people apply for different spots. So we have that call for proposals. And as Stephen likes to remind us, it's harder to get a session accepted through the call for proposals than it is to get into some Ivy League institutions. So with less than a 13% acceptance rate, we encourage everybody to apply. And then this year, for the first time ever, we're going to have a call for volunteers, which gives people an additional chance to participate, whether it's in the committee, through helping us with social media outreach, to have participation in our awards process, and a number of different ways to be a part of what we do throughout the year. We really want to make sure that we're allowing new and different ways for community support and participation. So we really are trying to find ways to make sure that we're keeping opportunities alive throughout the year. So we would be more than happy to have not just those who are in attendance this year, but also everybody else that supports us throughout the year be a part of the community.
Well, there you go, listeners. If you're sitting at home right now feeling the FOMO, I think you just got a great opportunity to maybe get a little more involved with AMA. Stephen, you mentioned the fireside chats, and I'm so excited about them. I was honored that Teresa reached out to me to co-lead a fireside chat with Tony Proudfoot, who listeners, I will be interviewing him as well while we are here. So don't worry, we're going to bring our fireside chat to your earbuds. But Teresa, give me some of the background and evolution of this really unique part of the AMA program.
I actually proposed this format last year with a session that I had put through the call for proposals for a format that I had with Dr. Ken Carter from Emory University. I had seen this at other conferences, and what I wanted for people to understand is that I didn't want to have a presentation with Ken. I wanted for people to understand that he and I just work together well. And the best way for people to understand that is that they needed to see that we work together as equals. And I wanted for people to hear the two of us talk with each other and partner with each other. And the best way for them to do that was to hear our banter. And they needed to hear how we spoke with each other and elevated the conversation together. And so it was through that format that I thought that they could best understand why and how we worked together. And it was through that conversation that we thought, how else could people be a fly on the wall to see how others relate and or work with each other? And that was really the genesis for this year's content.
I want to take the conversation just a slightly different route. Stephen, you mentioned that you started coming to AMA in 2009, Teresa in 2004. So it's not just the incredible program that drives people to this event, but it's the ability to network with their peers. And we've been talking about community and the impact that it can have all year round. So if someone is a first timer here at AMA, maybe listening to this podcast on Monday, what networking tips would you give? With 1,800 people here, there's a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we said, it's Sunday evening, and I've already lost count of the number of hugs I give, but that's not... for a first timer, I know that can seem intimidating and like there's a barrier to break through. I would encourage folks to, at some of the organized meals, we have talk tables that are basically by type of institution. So look for a table that matches whether you're at a public or a private or religiously affiliated institution, based on size, based on 2-year or 4-year institutions. Look for folks who are at similar places and start a conversation. Invite them out to dinner. Take advantage of opportunities like that. I know it can be challenging to get outside that shell, but it's absolutely worth it to build your community here at AMA, and it's a place you can come back to then year after year and replenish the energy and the resources and the relationships that you need to get through our often challenging work year after year.
And I would say take advantage of even the strange moments where you can meet people. One of my best friends in this industry I met at the gym. And really, I hit a PR on the treadmill only because I was not going to let her be faster than me. And P.S., she's a lot faster than I am. And she won. She would not say it's a competition. I will still say it's still a competition. And it was that I saw her every morning, and then I started to see her at different sessions. So take advantage of whatever those different moments might be to meet somebody new and to start to find who might be your people. And look for who you see in the elevators or whatever might be those different moments. It doesn't just have to be at sessions. So start to see where you find those faces that you recognize and start up conversations. I'm an introvert, and sometimes it's whenever I'm verting the most that I start to find people that are also verting in those same spaces.
The other thing I would add is just to know that you're not alone. The past 2 years, we've asked folks in the opening session to raise their hand if it's their first time at AMA, and pretty close to half of the room has raised their hand. Earlier this afternoon in the senior leader experience, the same question was asked, and at least a dozen hands went up. So you're not alone. So don't feel like you're the only person who's not been here before. There's a community out there for you to find.
So as we wrap up this conversation, are there any other teasers or announcements that you are planning to make this week?
I would just say one of our goals this year as co-chairs is that we've really tried to add transparency to our process. So we have a couple of different sessions where we are allowing people to come and ask us whatever they would like to know. One is on Wednesday, where it's Ask the Committee Anything, and it's exactly that. We want to make sure that we're adding the opportunity to ask about whether it's call for proposals or what we do or how processes work, etc. On Enrollify, you actually had me on to talk to Jenny Lee Fowler, and it was what's a good proposal session and a proposal content, and what should you be talking about, and how should you think about call for proposals in general. I highly encourage people to think about that podcast episode now, start thinking about it now, so that when it comes to the spring and we put out our call, you're ready to go. And I'm going to be encouraging everybody to listen to that session in the spring. And we this year instituted a session for people to come and ask us questions in advance of that closing of the call for proposals. Please listen to that session with Jenny, because what we want is for people to propose what makes them sparkle. Tell us what makes you sparkle, because that means when you are in front of your peers, you will have a smile on your face, and that's what we want.
Well, it was a real pleasure having the opportunity to sit down with both of you. You're so busy. You are running the show. So thank you for taking time out of your schedule to chat with us on Enrollify. If you're listening and you're not here, we are going to be dropping episodes all throughout this week and probably even next across the entire network, not just on The Pulse, but we have Brian Piper who's here and conducting interviews on his show AI for You. Same with Jenny Lee Fowler on Confessions of a Higher Ed Social Media Manager. Carrie Phillips is going to be doing some interviews, which will drop here on The Pulse, and many more of your favorite creators. So I hope you will enjoy these episodes live from AMA. And until next time, friends, see you soon. Bye-bye. The Higher Ed Pulse is part of the Enrollify Podcast Network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too. Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our show helps higher ed marketers and admission pros find their next big idea and features a selection of the industry's best as your hosts. Learn from Brian Gross, Eddie Francis, Jenny Lee Fowler, and so many of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.